Serious, married couples, what is the one thing you regret most about your wedding? A receiving line. We put my mother-in-law in charge of everything because we were getting married in my husband's hometown, but we were in school in a different state. She wanted a receiving line and we didn't fight her on it. Turns out she invited the entire city. We didn't get to eat the catered food, didn't get to dance, didn't even get to cut our cake. They started serving and eating our cake because we were stuck in the foyer of the reception hall shaking hands with hundreds of people we didn't know and would never meet again. I cannot stress enough, just don't do a receiving line. Edit, a word. Focusing way too much on small details. Nobody cares what color the napkins are. It was my wedding and I don't remember what color they were. Get napkins, move on. No need to stress about that stuff. For those wondering how to avoid this, get married as soon as you can after the proposal. When the engagement is short, the napkin conversation goes like this. Bride, what about the napkins? Groom, we should have napkins. Bride, okay. We got married in Hawaii with a very small group of friends and family. The wedding itself was marvelously low-key, very sweet and perfect for us. We just stuck around in Hawaii for the honeymoon. But my family was still there. I do wish that my husband and I had a little more time just to ourselves. But we're saving up for a two-of-us trip soon, so it's all going to work out. Inviting 75% of the people. Most of them I never see and are not involved in our lives. Would have rather spent the same amount of money on 25% of the people and had one of a high-end party. Edit, in case you are curious, we invited 300 people and 240 attended. Main problem I've found is if the bride's parents are paying for it, they typically want a say in who gets invited. My sister wanted a very small wedding, like 80 people, but ended up inviting more after all the invitation haggling. For example, oh, Mrs. Random, is your second cousin and invited you to her baby shower, you have to invite her. We wanted a tiny wedding, immediate family and close friends only. My mill invited her siblings and my spouse's deceased father's siblings. We were too polite to uninvite them. So the group was lopsided enough that the toasts were 80% about my spouse. My boss, who didn't know me that well, noticed the disparity and made a toast about me. The whole thing ended up looking like it was my spouse's wedding, and I'd been invited to attend. Still had an awesome time, though. This was also an issue at my wedding. My husband grew up out of state and it was not his first wedding. The ratio was similar, minus 85% my guests, and maybe 15% his. All the toasts but one were about me. I felt bad, but it was pulling teeth to even get his immediate family to come, so not much I could do. Still happily married almost 3 years later though. My stepsister got engaged at my wedding reception, and I didn't punch her or her fiancé for it later. Apparently the two of them arranged the whole thing together, that he would pop the question halfway through the daddy-daughter dance. Their marriage lasted all of 2 years, as well. OMFG, that's literally the trashiest thing in the world. I have a friend that I'm inviting to basically deal with anything that happens like that. By which I mean offenders will be ejected. And possibly peed on knowing him. It was this experience that made me tell friends who got married after we did to have some sort of dickhead patrol, to handle guests who decided to wear their buttocks upon their shoulders. She even tried to get us to pay for her engagement album, since our wedding photographer took pictures of their spectacle. Needless to say, we are not on terms now. For our wedding, we made the decision early on that we pick a few people from our family that we know we can rely on, and won't let power get to their heads. We delegate tasks to people, through those other people. We delegated the delegating. It meant that anyone who wanted to do anything had to go to them, which was fine, and if they didn't like it, they would jump the authority and come to us. We would listen and say sorry, but responsible person X is in charge of figuring those things out. I gave them authority so that I don't have to deal with it. Go talk to them. Only had to say that to 1 or 2 people before everyone else got the in line, including the matriarchs. Edit, that word up there. I've read online that this is a pretty common problem. If you have a unity candle, light the wick before the actual ceremony. My wife and I awkwardly tried to light ours for like 3 minutes while her family member was singing a song. We eventually just tilted our individual lit candles until they were leaning on each other and making one flame out of the 2 wicks. The crowd shared. Inviting a certain family member. My mother died a few weeks before the wedding. We'd moved in as close as we could, And with the stress of her being ill, I couldn't cope with my grandmother moaning that we hadn't invited these family members. Well, they showed up, after handing the RSVP to me at my mother's funeral while they were loading the coffin into the hearse. They ate food from everyone else's plates, sit-down dinner, and they mind-swept the food of people they'd never met before, took and ate an entire tier of wedding cake, and then kept getting the DJ to play NAF love songs dedicated to each other rather than the playlist we'd requested. It wasn't the worst behavior I'd ever seen from them at a wedding, but it was definitely the worst behavior at my wedding.